You don't have a life problem. You have a self problem. Everything you are experiencing right now, every pattern that keeps repeating, every door that keeps closing, every version of yourself that keeps showing up, no matter how hard you try to change, it is all coming from one place, the image you hold of yourself on the inside. Not your habits, not your discipline, not your effort, your self-concept, the deep, settled, mostly unconscious belief about who you are, and until that changes, nothing else will, not permanently. Not in any way that lasts. You can read every book. You can write every affirmation. You can follow every routine. But if the person you believe yourself to be does not match the life you are trying to build, the life will never come, or if it does, it will leave, because you will unconsciously push it away, because it does not match your identity, because deep inside, you do not believe you are that person. That is the truth most people are not told, and it is the only truth that matters. Your self-concept is not just what you think about yourself. It is deeper than thought. It is the feeling of what it means to be you, the quiet, automatic assumption you carry into every room, every conversation, every decision. It is the version of you that answers before you even speak, the one that decides what you deserve before the opportunity even arrives, the one that shapes how others treat you, how situations unfold around you, what you allow and what you reject, without you ever making a conscious choice. Most people live their entire lives without ever questioning this image. They believe they are just reacting to the world. They do not realize the world is reacting to them, to the silent broadcast of who they believe themselves to be. Think about someone you know who always seems to struggle, not because they are not smart, not because they do not work hard, but because no matter what they do, the same problems keep finding them, the same type of relationships, the same financial ceiling, the same feeling of being overlooked. Now think about someone who everything seems to work for. Opportunities appear. People trust them easily. Things fall into place in ways that seem almost unfair. The difference is not luck. The difference is not talent. The difference is self-concept. One person moves through life feeling like someone to whom good things happen. The other moves through life feeling like someone who has to fight for everything. And life, every single time, confirms exactly what each person already believes. This is not a metaphor. This is how the mind actually works. Your subconscious mind does not evaluate your life. It does not look at what is possible and help you reach for it. It looks at what you believe yourself to be and organizes your entire experience around that belief. It filters what you notice. It shapes what you say. It influences what you do and do not do, often without you realizing any of it is happening. It is always working, always confirming, always building the outer world to match the inner one. So if your inner world says you are someone who almost makes it, your outer world will show you almost. If your inner world says you are someone people leave, you will find people who leave. If your inner world says you are someone luck does not touch, you will stand at the edge of every opportunity and somehow miss it, not because the world is against you, but because you are unconsciously living in alignment with a self-concept that was never truly yours to begin with. Here is something that will change the way you see your life. The self-concept you carry right now was not chosen by you. It was absorbed. As a child, you had no filter, no wall between you and the world. Everything you heard, everything you witnessed, everything that was directed at you went straight in. The words of a parent, the reaction of a teacher, the silence of someone who should have seen you but did not. All of it became data. All of it became conclusion. And slowly, quietly, without any dramatic moment you can point to, you decided who you were. Not with a declaration. Not with a choice, but with a feeling that settled in. A quiet knowing that said, this is who I am. And you have been living from that place ever since. Most of that settled feeling was never accurate. It was the conclusion of a child trying to make sense of an adult world, and you have been treating it as truth. The deepest work you will ever do is not external. It is this going back to that settled place and changing what lives there, not forcing new behavior, not white-knuckling your way to new habits, but shifting the image, changing the answer to the question that everything else in your life is built upon. Who do you believe yourself to be? Not who do you want to be. Not who are you trying to be. Who do you actually, in the quiet moments, in the moments when no one is watching, in the moments between sleep and waking, believe yourself to be? That answer is your reality, and changing that answer is the only real change there is. You were not born with your self-concept. That is the first thing to understand. That is the thing that makes everything else possible. You learned it. You absorbed it. You built it from the materials that were given to you, most of which were not yours to carry. And because it was learned, it can be unlearned. Because it was built, it can be rebuilt, not through force. Not through pressure, but through a different kind of inner work, a quieter kind, a deeper kind, the kind that starts not with what you do, but with who you decide you are. This is where transformation actually begins, not in the morning routine, not in the goal list, not in the vision board on your wall. It begins in the place most people are too afraid to look, the image you carry of yourself in the silence, the quiet story you tell yourself when you think no one is listening, including you. That story is the blueprint, and a blueprint does not care how hard you work. It only cares about what it says. So if the blueprint says you are small, you will build small no matter how loudly you speak. No matter how many steps you take, the structure will always match the blueprint until you change the blueprint. Most people try to change their lives from the outside. They change their environment. They change their circle. They change their job, their city, their routine. And for a moment, it feels like something is shifting. There is a freshness to it, a hope. But then, slowly, quietly, the same feelings return. The same patterns emerge. The same version of themselves shows up in the new place, in the new relationship, in the new chapter. And they call it bad luck. They call it fate. They call it just the way things are. But it is none of those things. It is simply the self-concept reasserting itself, because you took yourself with you. You cannot outrun your self-concept. You cannot outwork it. You cannot outsmart it. It is not something that sits outside of you, waiting to be defeated. It is the lens through which you see everything. And when the lens is fixed, the image is always the same, no matter where you point it. This is why two people can be given the exact same opportunity and have completely different results. One of them sees the opportunity and knows it is for them. They move toward it with ease. Something inside them says, yes, this is mine. The other one sees the same opportunity and feels something quiet but heavy pulling them back, a hesitation, a doubt, a whisper that says, who are you to take this? That whisper is not wisdom. That whisper is old programming. It is the self-concept speaking, and it will always speak until you change what it believes. Here is something that most people spend their whole lives not understanding. Your self-concept is not your personality. It is not your strengths and weaknesses. It is not your history. It is not the story of what happened to you. It is simply what you have accepted as true about yourself. Nothing more, nothing less. And acceptance can be changed. The moment you understand that, everything shifts. Because suddenly the question is no longer, how do I fix myself? The question becomes, what have I been accepting as true that was never actually true? That is a completely different question, and it leads somewhere completely different. It leads inward, into the settled place, into the quiet room where all your assumptions live, and in that room everything can be rearranged. Your mind works in a very specific way. It does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you identify with. There is a difference, a very important one. Wanting something keeps it at a distance. Wanting says that thing is out there and I am here, and there is a gap between us. Identifying with something collapses that distance. It says, I am already the kind of person to whom this belongs, and your subconscious mind organizes your entire experience around your identity, not around your wishes. So when you spend your energy wanting, you are unconsciously reinforcing the gap between you and what you want. But when you shift into being, when you begin to carry yourself as the person who already has it, who is already that version, the subconscious has no choice but to begin rearranging reality to match what you have accepted as true. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is how the mind actually works. every single time. Think about the person you want to become. Not the goals, not the achievements, the person. How do they carry themselves? What do they believe about themselves without having to think about it? What do they assume about how the world works and how the world treats them? What is their relationship with themselves, with their own value, with their own presence? Now ask yourself honestly, is that who you are being right now? Not doing, being. Because the doing will follow the being every single time. You will naturally take different actions when you are a different person on the inside. You will naturally speak differently, think differently, choose differently. Not because you are trying to, but because you cannot help it. When the inner image shifts, the outer behavior follows automatically. That is the direction. That is the order. Inside first. Always inside first. There is a version of you that already exists on the inside. A version that is not waiting for circumstances to change. A version that does not need external proof to feel worthy, capable, whole. A version that moves through life from a place of quiet certainty. Not arrogance, not performance. Just a deep, settled knowing that says, I am this. That version is not a future possibility. It is a present choice. It is a choice about what you accept as the truth of who you are. And the moment you make that choice, really make it, not as a thought but as a feeling, your entire inner world reorganizes around it, and your outer world begins to follow. You have to understand something about the nature of identity. Identity is not built through action. Action can reinforce identity, but it cannot create it. Identity is built through assumption, through the quiet decision made below the surface that says, this is who I am. And once that decision is made, the actions that follow are inevitable. They are not effort, they are expression, they are simply what that person does because of who that person is. This is why forcing behavior almost never leads to lasting change. Because the identity underneath has not shifted. And the identity will always pull you back to what it knows. The only way to change the behavior permanently is to change the identity first. To go into the settled place and change what you have accepted as true. And from that new truth, the new behavior will emerge naturally, without struggle, without force, because it is simply what this version of you does. Some people hear this and feel resistance. They say, but I have tried thinking positively. I have tried telling myself good things. It did not work, and they are right. But not for the reason they think. Affirmations alone do not work, because they stay at the surface. You can say beautiful words about yourself 1,000 times a day, but if underneath those words there is a deeper feeling that contradicts them, the deeper feeling wins. Every time. Because the subconscious does not respond to words. It responds to feeling, to the emotional tone beneath the words. So the work is not to say better things about yourself. The work is to feel them, to embody them, to let them settle into the quiet place where the old belief used to live. That takes stillness. That takes practice, not effort. Stillness, not pushing, settling. And in that stillness, the old image begins to soften, and the new one begins to take root. You are not here to become someone new. That framing is wrong, and it matters that it is wrong, because becoming implies you are not yet, and not yet keeps you reaching from a place of lack. The shift is different. It is a remembering, a return. It is the recognition that the version of you that is whole, capable, magnetic, certain, was always there, buried under assumptions, buried under old conclusions, buried under the weight of a self-concept that was never truly yours. You are not building something from nothing. You are excavating, removing what was placed on top of the truth, returning to what was always underneath. And what is underneath has always been enough, has always been more than enough. You have spent so long living inside a story that was written for you, not by you, a story made from other people's opinions, from early experiences, from moments that hurt and conclusions that followed. And you have been faithful to that story, not because you chose to be, but because faithfulness to the self-concept is what the mind does automatically. It protects what it knows. It confirms what it believes. It returns to what feels familiar, even when familiar feels like pain, even when familiar means staying small, because to the subconscious mind, familiar is safe. And unfamiliar, even when it is better, even when it is everything you want, feels like danger. This is why change feels uncomfortable, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something new. And new always feels uncertain before it feels like home. The discomfort you feel when you try to hold a bigger image of yourself, that is not a sign to stop. That is a sign you are touching the edge of your current self-concept. That friction, that resistance, that voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" That is the old identity protecting itself. It is not truth, it is habit. And like all habits, it loses its grip when you stop feeding it, when you stop agreeing with it, when you stop treating its voice as the voice of authority. Because it is not authority, it is just familiarity. And familiarity can be replaced, slowly, quietly, through consistent return to the new image, through choosing again and again to feel yourself as that version. Not someday, now. This is the practice, not a discipline, not a grind, a practice. Daily, quiet, deliberate return to the feeling of who you have decided to be. Not who you are trying to become, not who you will be when things change. Who you are, right now, in this body, in this moment. Because the moment you make it conditional, the moment you say, "I will feel this way when the evidence arrives," you have already lost the thread. Because you are waiting for the outside to change the inside. And that is not how it works. The inside changes first, the evidence follows. Always. So what does this actually look like? It looks like catching yourself in the old story and gently returning, not fighting the old thought, not arguing with it, not trying to force it out, just noticing it. And choosing differently. It looks like sitting in stillness and asking yourself, how would this version of me feel right now? Not act, feel. And then letting yourself feel it, even for a moment, even if nothing in your external life has changed yet, because that feeling held consistently is what changes the self-concept, not in a dramatic moment, not in a single breakthrough, but in the accumulation of small, quiet choices to return to the new image instead of the old one, day after day, moment after moment, until the new image is no longer new, until it is simply who you are. There is something that happens when a person genuinely shifts their self-concept. People around them notice before they fully do. The way they carry themselves changes. The way they speak changes, not because they are performing something, but because something on the inside has settled differently. And people feel that. Opportunities begin to appear that were always there but never felt available before. Not because the world changed, but because the filter through which they see the world has changed, and now they can see what was always present. Relationships shift, some deepen, some naturally fall away, because people are always drawn to the energetic truth of who you are, not the surface, the truth. And when the truth changes, everything that was organized around the old truth has to reorganize. This is not loss. This is alignment. You have to stop waiting for proof. This is the hardest part and the most important part. The mind wants evidence first. It wants to see results before it believes. It says, "Show me that I am worthy, and then I will feel worthy. Show me that I am capable, and then I will believe I am capable. Show me the life first, and then I will become the person who lives it." But that is the reverse of how it works. You have to become the person first, on the inside, in the feeling, in the quiet assumption, and then the evidence will come. It always comes. Not on your timeline, not in the way you expect, but it always comes. Because it has to. Because the outer world is always a reflection of the inner one. And when the inner one is stable, when it is settled, when it is no longer shaking every time the outer world does not cooperate, the outer world begins to cooperate. Not as a reward, as a reflection. The version of you that you are reaching for is not somewhere far away. It is not locked behind years of work or specific achievements or external validation. It is one assumption away, one shift in what you accept as true about yourself. One decision, made not in the mind but in the body, in the feeling, in the quiet settled place, that says, "This is who I am." Not "this is who I want to be." Not "this is who I am working toward." This is who I am. And from that place, everything changes, not gradually, not with struggle, but naturally, inevitably, the way water finds its level, the way a tree grows toward light, without effort, without force, simply because it is its nature. You are allowed to be that person now, not when you earn it, not when you prove it, not when someone else confirms it. Now. The permission you have been waiting for was never outside of you. It was always here, in the choice to accept a different truth about who you are, in the willingness to let go of the old image, not with anger, not with force, with the quiet recognition that it was never really you. It was a conclusion, a learned response, a pattern absorbed so young that it felt like identity, but it was never identity. And now you know the difference. This is where everything begins, not out there, in here, in the image you hold of yourself when no one is watching, in the feeling you return to when the noise of the world goes quiet, in the answer you give to the question that everything else is built upon. Who are you, not who were you, not who are you trying to be? Who are you, right now, in this moment, in the silence of your own mind? That answer is your reality, and you can change it, not someday, now. The subconscious mind does not know time. It does not know past or future. It only knows what you are presenting to it in this moment. And in this moment, you can present something new, a new assumption, a new feeling, a new truth. One that says, I am the person I have always known I could be. I am not becoming, I am. And from that single settled place, everything else follows. Everything. This is not the end of the work. It is the beginning of a different kind of work. The quiet kind, the deep kind. The kind that does not look like anything from the outside but changes everything from the inside. The kind that requires no audience, no validation, no external confirmation. Just you. And the image you choose to hold day after day, quietly, certainly, until the life you have been imagining is simply the life you are living. Not because you forced it, because you became it.